Your trauma is not your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. Something I think a lot of us struggle to accept is what happened to you might not have been your fault, but what you do with it moving forward is still your responsibility. I know that sounds heavy, but it's an important truth many of us avoid because it forces accountability into a painful space. Trauma is real. People go through things they did not deserve. Childhood experiences, betrayal, abandonment, emotional neglect, abuse, loss, disappointment. Yeah, life can shape people in very painful ways, and nobody chooses that. Nobody asks for that. So, yes, in that sense, it is not your fault. But at some point, life does not ask what happened to you. It also asks what are you becoming because of that. Because if healing is never chosen, trauma can start to quietly control how a person thinks, reacts, loves, trusts, and even sees themselves. And that's where things get complicated because many of us start living from our wounds instead of healing from them. We build walls instead of boundaries. We shut down instead of communicating. We repeat circles instead of breaking them. And over time, what started as pain becomes personality. But it does not have to stay that way. Another truth I want to look at is that healing is not passive. It's not something that just happens with time alone. Time can soften pain, but intentional effort is what transforms it. Healing requires self awareness, it requires reflection, it requires honesty with yourself, it requires learning emotional control, unlearning destructive patterns, and sometimes when letting go of identities you built around your pain. And honestly, that process is not easy because some people become uncomfortable, or let me say, some people become comfortable with their pain in a strange way. It becomes familiar, it becomes an explanation of for behavior, it becomes a shield. But healing asks you to remove that shield and deal with reality directly. I also think many of us underestimate how much trauma affects relationships. Unhealed pain, it shows up in communication, trust issues, attachment styles, emotional reactions, and expectations. And sometimes we don't even realize we are reacting from old wounds instead of present situations. So we repeat the same patterns in different relationships and wonder why things keep ending the same way. And honestly, that is where responsibility comes in because while you did not choose what hurts you, you still have to choose whether it continues to control your life. Another important thing is that healing does not mean forgetting what happened. Yes, it means learning how to live without being controlled by it. It means developing emotional strength so your past no longer detects your present decisions. It means understanding yourself deeply enough to respond differently instead of reacting automatically from pain. And that takes work. I mean, real work, sometimes uncomfortable work, because healing will challenge your excuses, it will challenge your habits, it will challenge your identity, it will challenge the story you have been telling yourself about why things are the way they are. But growth always feels like that at first. Difficult, uncomfortable, honesty. Yeah, I also think a lot of us need to hear that responsibility does not mean blame. It does not mean you caused what happened. It means now you have power over what happens next in your life. And that shift is very important because staying in a place of it happened to me forever can keep a person stuck in survival mode emotionally. But moving into I am responsible for my healing creates a space for change. And honestly, that is where real transformation begins. Not in denial, not in excuses, but in ownership of the next step. Because at the end of the day, pain may explain your story, but it does not have to define your future. What hurts you is not your fault, but staying unhealed is still your responsibility.